Hey everyone, welcome to The Lobby. It's GameSpot's weekly talk show about video games and, well, anything we find interesting. I'm joined today by Scott Butterworth and Rob Henry. It's good to see you guys. We are all super busy. It's going to be kind of a short show today. One, because we're busy, and two, because there's only so many things we can talk about. Everything's under embargo, kind of tight-lipped.
Yeah, review season. That's the thing that happens.
It is upon us, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's actually happening.
And like everybody else is traveling, so it's basically the three of us today.
I know, yeah. Mike is out of sorts doing a thing, but he'll be back later today for next week. But yeah, you guys are stuck with me today. I want to kick things off. We're going to talk about Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare Remastered, which is included with a few different bundles for Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. And you guys had a chance to play it recently. I don't play a lot of Call of Duty. As much as I love the campaigns, I actually really wasn't into it back then. How does it feel to revisit this game after, what is it, 6 years, 7 years?
9 years.
9 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's funny. I was joking about this with Jean-Luc yesterday, that we've had a couple of remasters come out a year ahead of their 10-year anniversary, when it would I don't know if it would make more sense, but it would feel more like a culmination, right? But BioShock is the same way. It came out 9 years instead of 10 years, whatever. Yeah, playing that on the stream yesterday, it's crazy. Every mission is like, oh my God, this mission is so great. Every time we got something new, it's like, oh, okay, this thing happens. Yeah, this is so good.
So it sticks with you even after all those years. For a series that's had a lot of games, too.
Yeah, well, I mean, a ton of games. But, I mean, really, that first Modern Warfare it set the template for basically everything that's happened in Call of Duty since then. With the exception of, like, maybe the Black Ops games, because Treyarch really kind of found their own voice and did their own thing. But at least in terms of the Modern Warfare trilogy and even the games that have happened since then, like Ghosts, and I would assume to some extent Infinite Warfare, everything about those games was really established right away in Modern Warfare. So it's crazy to go back and play it and see just how fully realized that whole vision was just right out of the gate. How much of like the pacing and the set piece drivenness of it, like all these different ideas were there from the very beginning. It's so cool.
What about Rob, for you? Like mechanically, does this game still feel like up to par with what we've had, since?
I only played like a good hour and a half, and I was kind of going back and forth. Personally, I just wanted to get to that all gillied up mission, the sniping one, because I remember like having such great memories of that. But you totally hit the nail on the head of like, there was one. The mission I played was where there's an Abrams tank that's like stranded in the middle of an area.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about. And you have to basically go rescue it, and man, it was the weirdest flashback of like hugging a corner and not even getting to that open area.
But it's going to be there.
I remember having played that like so many times. Like just that was burned in my head was how hard it was. I must have played it on different difficulty because I kind of flew right through it. But yeah, that was really kind of cool. I remember just like out loud saying like, "Oh, I remember this." Like as I'm hugging the corner, like
same thing on the stream.
Shit sucked,
dude. We got to one part in the mission yesterday, and as we were around the corner, we're both like, "Wait a minute, I know what's about to happen." And then, sure enough, we turn the corner, and there's this TV station, which we both remembered as having infinitely spawning enemies and it being just impossible to get through. And even in chat, everyone's like, "Oh yeah, that building sucks. We hate this part of the game." But like before we actually got there, we're like, "Wait, this seems familiar." There it is. Like, it was. Yeah, just like so many of those moments. It's great.
But as far as, and again, like touching back on what I was trying to say was like fighting whether or not I would play this. Like it felt like I was playing it more for nostalgia's sake.
Okay.
Like trying to imagine how impactful this game truly was at that time. However, I was not, it felt very arcadey, right? Like it was very much like the animations of AI. AI in general was pretty poor. They're just standing there shooting at you. And, there's sometimes I like to imagine, Call of Duty games over time have gone more realistic to an extent.
Yeah.
This just felt, again, very arcadey. I felt like I was standing up, with like a plastic toy, like shooting at guys, like in waves. And like the structure of certain areas was like, okay, now it's this type of layout. Now they're going to come in waves or... It just kind of felt like I was fighting myself on whether I was actually enjoying it or whether I was like playing a memory. But I will say that visually, it's pretty up to par. Like,
yeah, they did a good job.
The textures are revamped. It looks pretty good. I'd say there's like a lack of shadows here and there where it's like very obvious connections of polygons or like just walls. Like, okay, like that looks a little weird. But in general, it's fun. It was fun to see like Captain Price again.
Yeah.
And hear like him bark around a team and go through houses and stuff. There were a lot of cool moments that I just feel like it's just a nostalgia thing where it's like, oh, that's cool. I remember this.
Okay, so on that point then, right? So this is part of a series of bundles that you can buy, Infinite Warfare. So how does that sit with you guys? Is that like maybe a good way to entice people that love a series to continue loving it and maybe pay a little bit more money, just for a dressed up version of an old game? Or is this kind of just an afterthought that you guys were happy to play with, but you might not go back to?
I wouldn't necessarily call it an afterthought. I feel like they did a good job with the remaster.
Well, I mean, for you, like as an afterthought for you at this point, because you played it a little bit, and now you got Infinite Warfare coming.
Right.
Do you feel like you've enjoyed this somewhat? It sounds like.
Oh, yeah,
do you want to keep playing it, or are you kind of satisfied to get that just that taste?
I mean, I actually might go back and beat it. I mean, the campaign's not super long. It's like what, 8 hours maybe. Like you can actually beat it in one really good sitting, or if you really want to grind through on veteran, it'll take you a little longer. But honestly, just put it on normal, let it kind of sweep you up. I mean, I think Rob was very right that it isn't the most challenging game in a lot of ways. The AI is pretty predictable. Most of the scenarios are kind of like easy to read. But really what makes it fun is you just kind of get swept up in the chaos of all of it. I mean, I remember at the time, it was really unusual to have so much happening around you in any given mission, right? I mean, every mission you were immersed in some larger battle of which you were only one small part. And that, the cinematics and like everything about it that made it feel so immersive. That was what was cool about it. So yeah, I mean, they've never been the most challenging games, but they're really easy to get swept up in. So I personally would probably go back and play a little more and beat the campaign, especially since it's relatively short. And I mean, I remember really enjoying the multiplayer at the time as well. So that I might not stick with quite as long. It depends. I mean, I'd have to jump in and play it. Unfortunately, we haven't had a chance to play the remastered multiplayer yet, so hard to say. But I don't know. And I think that the audience that cares about Modern Warfare Remaster isn't necessarily the audience that cares about Infinite Warfare. I think that a lot of that goodwill has kind of burned away over the years, and Call of Duty absolutely has its kind of core audience that buys the game every single year. But sort of the longtime fans, or people who've been playing games for a really long time, a lot of those people tend to be kind of down on Call of Duty because it's an annualized release, and they might care more about the nostalgia of replaying that first really, truly great game versus, playing the next iteration of this franchise. It's now been running for such a long time and has seen at least one release, I think, every single year for almost a decade.
But their only option now is to buy Infinite Warfare in order to access this, which is the unfortunate rub for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah.
In terms of what you're talking about.
Can you remind me what the package is? There
are 3 different ones. Let me see here. There's like a deluxe edition, the Legacy... Legacy Digital Deluxe or Legacy Pro Edition of Infinite Warfare.
Yeah, and you have to pre-purchase, not just pre-order.
Oh, really?
You have to give Activision actual money.
Wow.
And then you will be able to play the game. And that's starting tomorrow. You will be able to download Modern Warfare. Although you can also wait and buy Infinite Warfare on disc and then use the disc. But the disc has to remain in the system to play Modern Warfare. So you can't just buy the game, download Modern Warfare, and sell your copy of Infinite Warfare to GameStop or anything like that.
Do you think it would be just as enjoyable just to go back and play the original release of this game, or does it need the new sort of gussied up HD visuals?
That's a good question.
I mean, this is something we've talked about about several remasters. I sort of feel like our memories of how games looked aren't necessarily accurate. I think we remember things looking better than they actually did. And playing again on the stream yesterday, it looks very good. It looks like a game that could have come out 2-3 years ago as opposed to 9 years ago.
Sure.
And on a different console generation. So I think that this is kind of the way to play, especially now that I've sat down and played a couple hours. I don't know that I could ever go back to the original. I mean, I think we're probably still working on a side-by-side visual comparison, so that'll give us a little more to work from. But yeah, I would recommend that, if you really, really want to play the campaign again, probably worth playing the remastered if you can. I think that'd be the better version.
That's a super good question. Because what I was getting the most out of it was that nostalgia trip. It's why not just play the original game?
Why not, Rob?
Why not is exactly right. Yeah. It does look pretty good. Again, it's you're just fighting. For me, I was just kind of fighting my opinions. It's I guess this high-res explosion looks kind of good. That kind of looks good. It looks good. It looks good. I don't know. I was going back and forth, but I was enjoying that trip. It was cool.
All right,
remembering that game. Yeah.
All right. Well, those are our impressions of Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare Remastered, which you can get if you buy one of the deluxe editions of the upcoming Infinite Warfare. That's a lot of Call of Duties
Warfare.
and Infinite Warfares. If you're interested in this game, let us know in the comments below. And do you think that remasters are a good source of revenue or your time down the road? All right, guys. Outlast 2 demo just came out. Rob, you had a chance to play it. Do you love horror games a lot? I'm not sure that I ever see you playing them.
No, I mean, yeah, back and forth, I guess.
Did you see that gif of Rob reacting to the Resident Evil 7
yeah,
demo?
yeah.
Because that was fantastic.
And I heard you had a similar experience with Outlast 2.
Yeah.
All right, so describe this demo. I understand it's pretty short. And this is coming from a game that was supposed to come out this year, but was delayed until 2017, a little while ago. What was it that you actually played? What was available?
It just kind of kicked off, and you're just, man, it's funny to have played recently that Resident Evil demo, because they remind me very much of the same thing, where it's like a very much on, and maybe even more so this one, it felt very much on rails, except for certain areas. But anyways, you're just this guy, you immediately your glasses fall off, you trip. I think you were in a plane crash or something like that, and you were on a clearly bizarre farm where there's some mentally ill people who like to kill people.
Get out.
Get out. Immediately, you're just kind of introduced to them, and you are going through areas. Yeah, again, I haven't really seen any of the videos or that demo, so this was fresh for me. But you go into an area, and it's like super dark, where it's a bed or a barn cradle-looking bed, and there's a lot of blood there. You go, oh, this is where a baby might be, and there's blood. Not a good sign. Turn the corner, and there's a pit of dead children. So that was surprising. I don't know. In general, I could see where maybe it got delayed in that, like, I don't know if I got a good understanding of the game.
Okay.
In that, if it was on rail, like the first half of it was like super on rails. Like you just are
linear.
Linear, excuse me. Yeah. And you're literally being directed the entire time. So you like turn a corner, there's a guy there with an axe. It's like, oh, I shouldn't go that way. Turn the corner or something like that. That just felt a little old. And I don't know. The moments I prefer for my horror games sometimes is just like me having direct control of my circumstance. Like there's this part where you hit the cornfields, which is actually pretty cool. There's a bunch of people with flashlights, and you're just like, turning your infrared camera off and on, and you're just like avoiding them. That's pretty neat. I mean, that's me controlling my outcome. Those were more of the tense moments that I wish there were more of, I guess I could say. Yeah,
when it gets more open-ended like that, it's a lot less predictable. You feel like you have a little bit more control over your destiny, so when something does go wrong, it's kind of your own fault. It's not just a jump scare at that point.
Right. And I can say that I do get affected by jump scares, and this one definitely got me. There's this scene in a hallway. You like go through a memory. It's a bizarre game. Like there's like you like trip out. I don't even understand.
Yeah. So I actually played the same demo at PAX, and I think it's a bit of an older demo that's just now publicly available. But yeah, it's like there's no real explanation for how this happens. But basically, one moment you're on a farm, then you kind of crawl through a hole or fall down a hole, and all of a sudden you're like in an elementary school.
That's never happened to you in real life?
Kind of out of nowhere. Not recently.
Oh, okay.
And then, you're kind of making your way through the halls of elementary school and like looking through lockers, and you'll see like flashes of silhouettes in classrooms, and you kind of feel like there's something near you or behind you, but you can never actually pin it down.
And that copy of a Call of Duty game is in a little locker. I remember this.
And then eventually you leave the school somehow. I can't even remember how you get out of the school. I think you're like pulled through the ceiling by something.
You were literally ripped out of your own memory. So I guess the idea is that you were just like, I would imagine like tripping out.
Something. And then you end up back on the farm. But I don't know. I kind of like games that will mess with, it's not fourth wall breaking, but they're very much toying with the medium in a way. It's like, well, this couldn't happen in reality, but all we have to do in a game is like when you walk into the next room, it's suddenly a totally different environment. It's so easy to execute, but so unsettling for you as a player. Like I appreciate games that are willing to sort of mess with your head like that and use that to throw you off and keep you creeped out. That to me is a cool approach in horror games. I really like when games do that well. So if nothing else, this particular demo had a great sense of atmosphere, although I agree that mechanically that I was also feeling a little bit lost.
Yeah, like I could have used more dead ends,
Sure.
Just
dead ends,
opening a door, like going around like, oh wait, I can't open this door. God damn it. like, oh, I can't open this door, but clearly this is the only door that like I can open that I can go through. So this is supposed, this is where I'm supposed to go. And I think that just got a little tired, and I wanted more of like an exploration value, because that's how, like, I don't know, whenever I think of horror movies, that's how it kind of always is. It's just someone alone, lost, searching, like, and you're being chased.
There's no sign telling them to go one way or another, or right. I mean, they basically have to figure what the hell to do.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that, but I think there could be more of a right reason. Like when this like the first like minutes or few minutes of that game, it's just one path. Like here's a fence, here's a bunch of shit in the middle of the road that you can't get through. Like that, just like it's like, all right, well, I'll just hold my hand. Where am I going?
Yeah, well,
I don't know.
Talk to me about the battery, because I understand you have to collect power for your camera. You can use the infrared light. Did you find that in this demo that actually like had a meaningful part of your experience? No,
my batteries never. I mean,
my battery ran out when I got to the field, so I was like, yeah. Really? But I actually found one lying in the middle of the cornfield for some reason, which is an odd place for a battery.
Video games, man.
They're also double A's.
Yeah, I guess. I'm not sure what your camera takes, but it happened to be the exact battery my camera needed, so it worked out. But
I don't know. I think I also was like rushing it. But that's kind of how I feel like a horror game should, you know what I mean? Like, you're not like, I'm going to explore while I'm being chased. Like, there's reasons for that that I felt like were untouched, more or less. I don't know.
Also, having played Resident Evil 7 in VR, is this the sort of experience that you imagine might also translate well?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. Although, with that in mind, in the Resident 7... Did they have like a camcorder or anything that they were like using?
No, not that I recall.
I don't know.
Yeah, the just on your own.
Yeah,
I think this totally would work. Those two are very similar. Yeah, I could totally see VR being great for this.
I'm sure if it was on PlayStation VR, they could just use the controller as to mimic a camera. You just hold it up.
That's what I'm getting at. It's like how
do you account for
put
everything,
on another
right?
VR? Yeah, I don't know. I enjoyed it for the most part. I don't know. I wonder like why that was delayed, because this kind of left me like questioned like, what is this level design structure of this? Like it felt kind of like off. Like,
well, it's one thing to consider like the legacy of the last game, which was kind of a surprise success. It sounded like for Red Barrels, the developer, they were almost taken aback by it, and so that spurred them to continue to make the series. You got to imagine that they really want to nail it. Otherwise, they stand to maybe lose all of that goodwill that they've earned. Mm-hmm. So this demo might be just a good way for them to just sort of put something out there for people who are expecting the game but won't get it until next year.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's definitely what I think the takeaway is like, enjoy it for what it is. Get hyped. Also, the ending was a little weird. Do you know the ending?
I don't know the ending. Do I want to know? Should we?
Spoilers.
Is it spoilers?
I mean, it's a demo.
It's a demo.
So not really.
Hit me. What happens?
You run into one of the fantastic farmers, and he takes an axe to your crotch.
My crotch?
Yep.
Specifically. You were in the game.
So that in VR would be super fun.
Gosh.
Yeah.
John Luke would be into that. We were discussing this yesterday. He always shoots for the crotch, that guy.
Oh my God.
All right, it's a lot more about Jean-Luc than we really wanted to know.
Oh, yeah. But, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, that's the Outlast 2 demo. Did you guys get a chance to play it? Let us know in the comments below. And are you still looking forward to the game despite its linearity? Gentlemen, that's pretty much all the new stuff we can talk about, because we don't have Mafia 3 yet. The game is coming out in just a couple of days, and typically at this point, we would have a review out. The name of the game this time around, like it was with Doom, is that no copies are coming out until release day. That can often ring alarm bells for some people. Mm-hmm. But who's to really say? Because Doom turned out really well.
Yeah.
Scott, you're going to be the one reviewing this game.
I am.
And you have the unfortunate duty of doing it, without maybe a finish line in mind.
Yeah.
But, in your mind, is this really a bad sign that this game is coming out late? I mean, have you had a chance to play any of it at events thus far?
Only once in a very limited capacity, so it's really not enough to like color my perception of the game. I mean, I love what they're doing thematically. I'm excited about the setting. I'm excited about the characters. I like that they've committed to a fully open world game. So there are a lot of reasons I think it might be really great. Yeah, sometimes if you don't get review copies ahead of a game's launch, that can be a sign that there's something to hide, and the publisher doesn't have faith in the product, and therefore they don't want people reading reviews. But that's also totally not necessarily the case. I mean, Doom is a great example, as you just pointed out, of a game that was actually really great, and that again we just didn't get until like day of, if not like. I mean, you may have actually, I think, went out and bought a copy from what I remember.
We used an Australian PSN account to download it.
Yeah. So
I think the one thing to consider here, you bring up the sort of the themes in this game, which deal a lot with race during a time in America's history that was super tumultuous. And it begs the question, maybe they're scared of people reading reactions to that. The marketing behind this game has been pretty consistent and loud for a long time now. And it's almost like that they'd rather have the marketing speak for the game than other people sort of impart their opinion on how they're handling something so potentially caustic.
Right.
I mean, it's one thing if they're really confident that they've nailed it, but how can you be confident about speaking about something so controversial, especially this year when things have kind of hit the fan in a way?
Just a little.
Yeah.
It's entirely possible that they don't want controversy to eclipse the game itself.
Yeah.
That is a very interesting theory. I mean, honestly, who's to say? That's something we'd have to talk to the publishers and developers about, but that is entirely possible because you're very right. This game is approaching some very difficult subject matter, some stuff that has sort of proven to be touchy, especially among gamers. To sort of broach those topics in a serious way, in a way that's not going to be comfortable for a lot of people, naturally that's going to become a focus for certain crowds, for certain audiences. And there is definitely a chance that the noise or the reaction that comes from that will overshadow the game itself. So wanting to avoid that makes a lot of sense. I have no idea if that's what's happening, but there's a lot of weight behind that theory. Like that makes a great deal of sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult to say, but this game has been in development for a while, and we've seen it in quite its finished form, for some time, right? We've had recent events where people had to play a large chunk of the game. So it really does beg the question, where are these copies? And this is not a tale of us being sad that we don't get to play the game. We'll get to play it eventually, like a lot of people. But in a sense, reviews kind of do a service for the consumer, right?
Yeah.
Because pre-orders are such a thing in video games now where people feel compelled to get the game on day one. And they're, stoked with like pre-order items and all these other exclusives, that reviews are sort of the only line of defense in some ways to protect people from when a game really isn't as good as the company is claiming it to be. So I think that is actually the bigger problem here. So I don't want people to think that we're whining that like, oh, we don't get to play the game yet and our job is more difficult. But it's actually a concern for everybody because a lot of people put down $60 without much beyond an advertisement here or a video there.
Yeah,
and it's kind of tricky.
I mean, I will say that if people are concerned, if you heard this news and you thought like, oh, they have something to hide, clearly this game is going to be awful and they've been lying to us all this time. Like if that was your reaction, then wait. Like we are going to review the game. We are absolutely going to review it. Our review will probably go up sometime next week. We're going to get it done as efficiently as we can, obviously, as our other outlets. So I mean, if people out there are actually concerned, if they need a review to validate an opinion, or if they want to be certain that they're buying something that's going to be worth their money, give it a couple days. Like you're not wrong that pre-orders are pushed more and more, and that has totally become a thing. And maybe the people that pre-ordered are confident that they're going to love it no matter what. But if you haven't pre-ordered and if you are concerned, just wait. Don't buy it day one. Like read reviews, wait and hear what your friends think. Watch YouTubers play it. I guarantee there's going to be a ton of people streaming it on Twitch. Like make up your own mind. You can gather information from so many sources these days that, if it turns out the game is terrible and it isn't worth your money, you will know. You will figure that out. So, like, I don't know. I don't interpret this as, like, necessarily a bad sign. I don't think that it's necessarily, like the developers, the publisher trying to lie to their audience or something. Like, I think it's just, like, they made a strategic choice, and that's their right because it's their product. Like, we are not...
No, Scott.
We don't deserve...
I get it. Look, I'm with you 100%. I'm not saying...
I'm preaching to the choir.
I'm not saying this is bad for the... I'm not saying this means the game is bad, right?
Oh, no. But I think people sometimes make that assumption. Like, I've seen that in comment sections.
Right. No, I just want to be clear that, like, this is not saying that they have something necessarily to hide, like a bad game, and people are going to feel duped. But at the same time, it is highly unusual behavior, right? That only occurs a few times a year with very specific games. With Doom, there's really we don't know why.
Yeah.
We never really got an explanation why. And it turned out that, hey, everything was fine. With Mafia, who really knows? Like this game, I think, I just worried that it's about the controversy. I worry that is the reason. Again, I have no freaking knowledge.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's like a day one patch that they want to tidy everything up. Like so many big games, but so many of those big games we also get ahead of time. Yeah. And those day one patches, sure, they may make a difference, but they don't really impact the entire game at large. It's really something to like please the developer in a way. Right, the creators behind it. So I'm a little disappointed that I guess that they're not willing to put their a confident foot forward and give this out. And that's how I feel about it.
That's fair.
Yeah. All right. Well, Mafia 3 is coming out soon. We will have a review. Are you looking forward to the game? I think everyone should give it a shot just because of the things it's tackling. It's really rare we get these subject matters in games. But let us know how you feel in the comments below. Following Mafia 3, there are so many other games coming out in 2016. And I know the ones I'm excited for. Primarily Last Guardian. I am super curious how that game is going to turn out after a decade. I don't know that it's going to be amazing, but I know that I'm just endlessly curious. Final Fantasy 15 as well. But what about you guys? What's the stuff you're looking forward to the rest of the year?
I'm curious to see what Battlefield is like, and as well as Titanfall. I'm actually super excited to play that campaign. Having like seen snippets of it, I'm sure you saw some of it. It looks great. It looks like it feels like a perfect example of a developer that saw all the feedback and was like, okay, we'll just do that. We'll take all the feedback on like, there wasn't much of a story. I didn't understand. Like they hit every mark with developing that like Titan pilot relationship that just seems so strong in some of the footage we've seen. I'm really excited for that. And to know more about that universe because it's a sweet universe. But that campaign just did, in my opinion, a hard time of, intertwining that with multiplayer. Like you were just so distracted. I think that's really exciting. But unfortunately, those are basically in the same 2 weeks, 1 week. Battlefield and Titanfall.
They're pretty close. Yeah, not far.
both due out this month. This month in particular is really intense. But yeah, I actually got to play a few hours, 2 or 3 hours of Titanfall's campaign, and yeah, I think your perception is very right. They've dug into the story. They've really fleshed out the relationship between one particular pilot and Titan. I think the most surprising thing about my time with the single player was the fact that you have dialogue options constantly. You're bantering with your Titan BT over the radio or like while you're piloting him, and like he just kind of weighs in with stuff like as you're moving through the level, and you can choose how you respond. You can be kind of snarky, or you can like be nice about things, and it doesn't really direct the story in any way. It's just kind of allowing you to shape that friendship or that partnership in a way that reflects kind of your personality. I thought that was kind of a cool choice. That it's just kind of there for some flavor. It just keeps you engaged. Yeah, exactly. Actually, in my write-up of the single player, I compared it to Firewatch, which is the closest thing I could think of. That it's not so much about, you unlock a different ending if you direct the narrative down this path. It's just you are kind of shaping a relationship, which is really cool. I think they actually have done a pretty good job with it. That portion of the writing was really good.
And also, from what I saw as well, was taking different directions of like, are you more into the humor side of a story to be told?
Yeah.
Choose that path. Or you want to maybe you want to know more specifics or more details. It seemed like they were kind of directing those choices in that direction.
Yeah. I don't think it runs super deep, but you definitely have some degree of control over how you engage the world. For sure.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty psyched about the campaign, and actually I've really enjoyed multiplayer as well. I know people weren't super stoked on the beta, but I've now also played like the full competitive suite with all of the Titans in it and a whole bunch of new maps and modes and stuff, and it all kind of comes together in an interesting way. Rob and I have talked about this before. So honestly, I'm pretty psyched about Titanfall. I know people are a little cold on it after having played the beta, but I'm psyched. Having now played quite a bit of it, I'm very excited. Same thing with Gears, actually. I played a lot of Gears. I think that's coming together really well. I really like the direction the team is taking. It seems like they have a firm understanding of the franchise and know when to defer to the legacy of the game and when to kind of push things in a new direction. I had a lot of fun playing the campaign. It felt very much like a Gears campaign of like, this mix of very linear corridor shooting that then opens up into a broader arena, and then like you encounter a set piece moment, and everything is paced very deliberately, and it's very cinematic, and you get these relationship moments between the characters. It's all very, very Gears, and seemed to be pretty well executed, at least the portion that I played. And then the multiplayer as well, drawing a lot from Gears past, but doing new things with it, like super fun. Yeah. I'm actually doing a stream of Horde mode tomorrow, so people want to tune in. Horde mode is a ton of fun. I really like what they've done with that. So Gears is like, God, I think it comes out next week, right?
Jeez.
Yeah, it's coming up.
So I'm psyched for Gears. I'm hoping it's going to be as good as the portions that I've played so far.
What about Watch Dogs 2? Rob, you grew up in San Francisco. Does that appeal to you at all, playing a game like that's supposed to be realize the city like that well and with such depth?
Yeah, I looked at some of the absolutely. Like I would definitely want to see some of the landmarks, like the Bush guy.
Oh, is he in that?
He is, and supposedly,
man.
unfortunately, he actually died in real life. I heard.
No, I know. Yeah. So for people who don't know, the bush guy is this person down by the pier who would hide behind a swath of bush and jump out and scare unsuspecting tourists, much to the delight of everyone else but those tourists.
Yeah,
And did this for years and years.
Forever.
Yep. It was great.
He's in the game, which I think is great.
Look him up on YouTube.
Yeah.
I think it's cool. They got an office out here. Like I think they're gonna do the city justice. I think they're gonna show it well. My main concern, and I think it looks like they really stepped it up, was for me, Watch Dogs 1. I got, unfortunately, like 3 hours in, and literally lost a craving battle for GTA. Like literally would like put that game down and would like play GTA 5 because that open world for me and the driving and I feel like it was just not clicking. Like it wasn't believable, the open world. People walking around, chatting, like it just like nothing sold me as well as like a Grand Theft Auto game. However, this time around, it looked like they've really gone into the direction of like, you know what, we're just gonna give you all these great abilities. Like, you could basically frame a police officer on the street and say he's a wanted murderer, and all the cops will turn their guns on him. Like, I feel like they've done a nice job of just like giving you all the tools to like have fun, but not necessarily saying like, this is crazy. You know what I mean? Like, not taking the route of say like a Saints Row, where it's like overly just like sarcastic almost. I don't know.
Right.
And this just seems a much more enjoyable world to just play in. It looks good. The footage looks good. I got my hopes for that.
Just seems fun. Like that's kind of what was missing from the first game. It was so like even the hero was just this dour, humorless jerk who was just. I mean, and it made sense in the story context. He lost his family, and there was this redemption story. But the entire game felt so gray and self-serious that it really was just kind of missing fun. And so I feel like this new world and this new city, new setting, new character, all kind of have at least a degree of fun to it that makes you kind of want to spend time there. I'm a little worried that they're going to go too over the top with like the millennial flavoring and like there's going to be way too much slang that doesn't quite make sense.
I agree.
And so I'm a little concerned that that's going to be kind of grating. But outside of that, I'm way more excited about this world and even this game as a whole than I was about the original Watch Dogs. The other thing I would add to what Rob was saying, and I agree with everything he said, I really appreciate that they've made hacking so much more open. It felt like it was. You were very dependent on your environment. Everything was, if you happen to be standing near a particular thing, that's what you could hack. That's what you could use. But if you weren't near anything hackable, you were screwed. Like you just had no options. In this game, you have like a drone that you can deploy, a couple different drones you can deploy. Seems like there's more stuff you can hack and more stuff you can do when you hack it. As it gives you a lot more freedom and makes that mechanic kind of more useful and something that will actually make the game feel distinctive as opposed to just being this thing that's like shoehorned in like, look, we're a hacker game. And it's, no, not really.
That's such a good point. Just like that was the problem with the first one was it was very much one-off hacking abilities.
Yeah,
like
everything was contextual.
Roadblock in the middle of the street. Now it seems like you can do a lot of combinations with different hacking abilities. Like you said with the drone, like I can get to, somewhere that would not be possible for me to do on foot, or I can get here easier, or I can combo. Frame this cop while I hotwire his car.
Really like framing cops, huh?
It sounds so dumb and great. Just like,
no, it's hilarious.
We went to police academy together. I thought I knew this guy. Just situations. Just seems fun. What was the other thing? You could also inform like a local gang that like this person, frame some like a woman.
You're just gonna frame everyone in sight.
It's a fun way to play that game. Just subterfuge.
So funny about that.
Nothing, like never hijack a car, never just go around like ruining people's lives with misinformation.
But it's just so funny to think of people like some gang guy on his phone like, oh shit, so took a bunch of coke, like just on his phone constantly. Will just then go to that person and kill him, or like start a whole scene in the middle of the street, like just standing there doing that. Sounds so funny.
I just realized it'll be really interesting to compare Watch Dogs and Mafia because those are sort of the two big open world, third person, story driven. Like they're very similar, at least on paper. I mean, thematically in the story, they're trying to tell very, very different, but like mechanically in terms of the game they're trying to be, very similar. So I think that'll be an interesting showdown this holiday season.
I know. I'm super curious about both games, like how gunplay and like action is going to play into it all, because it seems like they're playing with really cool concepts and themes, but then it's like this de facto sort of like action stuff thrown in to like satisfy part of the audience.
And if
that
that's
has
not
me kind of
good,
concerned.
then the whole game's gonna fall apart. I mean, that was a struggle for GTA for years.
Right. Yeah. I can crack that shiny veneer in such a way that's like, oh, it stands out like a sore thumb.
Totally.
I guess we'll find out, won't we? Is there any other games you guys are looking forward to? I mean, there's honestly a lot coming. Give me one more.
Civ. I'm excited for Civ. I've been a big Civilization fan for a very long time. I'm really excited about the changes they made in Civ. Kind of like with Gears, I appreciate just the direction they're taking it, the ideas that they've tried to imbue in this new iteration, just like unstacking the cities and the hidden agendas, all these different mechanics that have now been layered on top, that are gonna, I hope and I think, and especially according to Mike Mahardy, are gonna change the way that the game plays in a kind of fundamental way without totally altering the franchise's DNA.
Right.
So I'm excited to see how that pans out. I have a lot of faith in that team. They clearly know what they're doing, so I'm excited for more Civ. And I'm excited that it's something a little different. It's not just like a blockbuster shooter, which seems to be a big, chunk of the games that come out at this time of year. So that could be a really cool break from some of the other stuff we're getting this holiday season.
There's a lot of shoot 'em ups coming out.
Yeah, there are.
Yeah.
Lots of guns.
As every year.
I will say that I will definitely play Infinite Warfare's campaign. Like that, it looks pretty good.
Yeah, dude, space dogfighting. That seems
Yeah.
fun. I'll try that.
I hope that works.
Yeah,
It's worth it. I mean, I'll try it.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah.
I want it to be good.
that's a good point. Like, man, if I want when I want dogfighting, I want it 1-to-1. I want to be controlling my own roles. And if it's like super on rails, just like hold the trigger down and just fire away. Like, get me back. Get me out of here. Get me on foot. It's bullshit.
What if you can hack enemy ships and tell them about all those coke deals?
I want to frame someone.
Peter, what has you so excited about Last Guardian? That's so interesting to hear you say that, because I feel like that has fallen off of a lot of people's radars. Like it's been in development for so long. Now that we've finally seen it, people are kind of like, yeah, whatever. And it seems like its moment is kind of passed, but apparently not for you. So why are you still psyched about it?
Moments don't pass for me when it comes to games that I haven't had a chance to play.
Fair enough.
This is something that seriously was announced back when Fumito Ueda, the developer of Ico, Shadow of the Colossus, and now this, was at the peak of his career. And this seemed to be the next step in his evolution as a developer to dramatize the whole thing.
His final form.
Yes, and so we've seen people play the game and we've seen their reactions, and it sounds kind of middling, but a lot of the things they describe are sort of part and parcel of Shadow of the Colossus and the way it controls, the way it animates, and I'm okay with that. I do think it may stand out in today's modern era where things are maybe a little bit more tight and less, floaty. But again, that's a style that I've accepted in the past, and I embrace older games more than most folks. But I do think that there's a chance that won't ruin the game for me. So I put that aside, and what I'm left with is my initial sense of wonder at what can Ueda-san do to really surprise me again, and I just don't know. And so that is why I'm so interested in seeing it. There are ads on buses now. I mean, that game is freaking coming out. So it's coming. So I feel like I'm ready to actually be excited and be curious. And I'm a little sad that it comes at the tail end of the season, though, because I think people are going to be so exhausted, at least on our end, from so many games. And even for consumers, they've probably spent a lot of money up until that point.
Yeah.
And I think a similar fate is something that Final Fantasy 15 faces. Another game that's been in development for a long time, though this one has changed hands. And it seems to be coming together. It's evolved a lot since the two demos that we've had a chance to play. But Final Fantasy, as much as I love it, it can, excuse me for saying it can be too far up its own butt sometimes to the point
Peter.
it loses maybe sight of the things that the audience really loves, and it's sort of trying to tell the audience what they should love. I think a lot of games have that problem, but Final Fantasy 13 exhibited those issues quite a bit. Now, again, development has sort of changed hands, and this is not the same team that made 13 by any measure, but there's been some things like the sort of like the top-heavy girl whose shirt is unbuttoned.
Right.
That's the sort of thing where it's like, that shouldn't be important to either emphasize or defend. And if that's the thing they're going to stick with, plus all these like fashion things tacked on top of it, I wonder where their priorities are. So I'm glad to see that it's improved. I'm cautious to see that it's doing some things that don't really matter to me, and I think a lot of people. And so, again, you combine those two things, and it's like, what will this be? What can it turn out to be? and we'll have the pleasure of finding out at the end of November, I guess. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
At this stage, I mean,
It is interesting that those are both coming a little later on.
I know.
But at least the nice thing I would say about Ueda-san's games is they tend to be kind of timeless. So even if people miss it, this December, I feel like that kind of experience has legs and could still be something beautiful and enjoyable, assuming the game came together.
Yeah.
Just as much next year as it would be this year. So hopefully,
As it should be, right?
Yeah. And so hopefully it doesn't get completely overlooked. But even if it does, to some extent, I think that will, as with Shadow of the Colossus, become, at least find a cult following, if nothing else. Yeah.
All right, those are the games we are looking forward to throughout the rest of the year. Let us know what you are looking forward to in the comments below. Gentlemen, that was a lobby. It was short, it was bite-sized. Yeah.
It's one of those weeks.
We've got a lot of stuff coming out of the pipe next week.
Yeah.
We'll finally talk about some things tomorrow, PlayStation VR related, which I'm super excited about.
Oh yeah, we're gonna do a stream tomorrow. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, we are. We're gonna 11 o'clock, I think.
I'm excited.
An hour and a half.
We're going to gear stream later in the day, everybody.
Gear stream later in the day. Yeah, a lot of streaming going on, a lot of good games coming out. Well, hopefully good games.
Yeah.
Let's say.
We'll see about that.
Marketing got to me.
You're just optimistic. I appreciate that, Peter.
Yeah, why not? It's when I get to review the game, that's when I get to actually put my critic hat on. But for now, I like to just, we'll have fun for now.
I think we all want games to be good. I always want games.
Yes.
I'm always rooting.
I try to harp that as well, because it's like, who wants a bad game?
And I don't think that's an obvious thing. I don't think it's something to take for granted. Like I appreciate people that have that attitude. That like, listen, I want everything to be great. I want everyone to have fun. People spend a lot of time and effort on these things. Like, I don't know, video games.
Yeah,
they're great.
Video games.
Yeah.
You can watch them here. You can watch us chat about them every Tuesday, 2 p.m. Pacific on the lobby. Thanks for joining, everyone. Take care. See you next time. Uh-oh.